everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade and I'm super excited to have Leilani with us today, who is a full-time lawyer, part-time nutrition student, dog mum of two, amateur food blogger, who has a passion for balancing work, study and chronic illness and health while focusing on all things foodie. Welcome, Leilani.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be chatting to you today.
Oh, I can't wait to have you here. And I'm so sorry. I always get so nervous on intros. Like I'm still getting over it right now as we speak. And I just wonder sometimes if the listeners pick up on it, because I've commented on it a few times. Like, no, I didn't notice. And then others are like, oh, I hear the stutter. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Or I breathe really heavy. Oh, anyway, nonetheless, I'm stoked to have you here. And you are one busy woman, my goodness, full-time lawyer, part-time nutrition student. Wow.
Yes, just when I thought it wasn't enough to be a full-time lawyer, I thought I'd go back to uni.
Yeah, and what inspired you to get into nutrition? Was it your HA journey, or had it already sort of been a passion for you?
It was a little bit of a passion before my HA journey, but funnily enough, not like a lot of people that I've heard from and spoken to who do study nutrition or dietitians or nutritionists. They really got into it in high school, or there was something really far back in their childhood, but not really for me. I never really considered it as a passion or even a hobby. I actually hated cooking. But now, yeah, I think it sort of sparked and started to become an interest before actually having any health issues at all. But when I decided I wanted to help other people and study nutrition again, it was after getting sick and learning that I have a chronic illness, and then having HA on top of that. It really just solidified my desire and passion to want to make it something that's not just a side time interest.
Yeah, so I guess that's a really nice place for us to jump into. I guess the main reason you're here with us today is to share your HA journey, and then perhaps we can touch on some of the chronic illness side of things, because it's something that many of us face, and your journey might help other women that are in similar positions. So I guess jumping back to the very beginning, do you want to paint us a little bit of a picture as to what life was like when you're missing a period, and food, exercise, stress, everything? Tell us the lot.
Oh, well, I think I don't know if this is a common story for many women. So I think that's why I wanted to share my story, and why I am so open about it, is that I don't know how long I actually had HA for, because I was on the pill. I went on the pill when I was 16. So I think I was on it for 11 years, no breaks, nothing. So I hadn't had a period since I was basically a child, since I was a teenager. And I had no idea what my body was doing basically until I came off the pill.
Your main reason for going on the pill at 16, was that because you were having horrible PMS? Maybe you're having skin breakouts? Because I know when I was 16, I jumped on the pill as well. Mum took me to the doctor. She's got heavy bleeding and clotting and her skin's breaking out. She's a mess. And they had this magic tablet that fixed it all. Was that you as well?
Yeah, that sounds pretty much exactly like what happened with me. Very, very bad PMS and lots of pain. And I've always had skin issues. So It was kind of a culmination of all of them. And the doctor was sort of like, go on this will fix it all. And it kind of did. I never really had any issues on it, but yeah, that was the kind of main reason I went on it. But before coming off the pill, and then when I realized I did have HA, what I was doing was kind of the same. Anyone who knows me knows that I love exercise. I love going to the gym. I love being active. There's nothing that I love more. And I got into the gym probably about 6 years ago. I'd never done anything like it other than playing team sport. And I was always a really active kid, but never really into it like I was back then. It was all for health. You hear the same sort of story. Yeah. I just sort of started dabbling in going to group fitness classes and things like that. But to summarize what's a very long story, is that eventually I just found myself in a place where I was over exercising, not realizing it. I thought I was doing what everyone else was doing. I'd hardly have rest days. I was basically thrashing my body. some group fitness classes, a lot of that high intensity sort of training. And I think a common thing that I have heard since sort of talking about my own story is the whole how much your, I guess, identity and mindset is all tied up in that fitness identity. Even though I'm not a fitness professional in no way, shape or form, I still sort of had that. I was really fit. I could lift heavy things and do all these things, and I really thrived on that. So I was probably not, I was in a bit of denial, I think, with where I was with my exercise. And then food, again, another sort of in denial, I guess, about that too, because I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't realize that I was under eating in the beginning. And then I just wasn't eating enough carbs as well. And then having a really stressful job. And I'm just that type A person, just naturally stressed. So it was all a bit of a perfect storm. That was where I was when I was probably in the depth of my HA.
I like that you touched on with the, I could lift heavy things and I could say move really fast, because there is that period of time where you are really enjoying training, and it is a incredible feeling to know your body's got the capacity to do all these things. And I do remember it, some of the pinnacle points of my journey as well. I remember just finishing certain workouts being like, wow, I did that. And it does feel great. And then you can't wait to prove it to yourself again, that you can do it again. And yes, we, overdo it and it leads us to HA, but especially in those early days, it really is just striving for how good can my body be? Like how much can I get it to perform? How well can I feed it? And hindsight's a wonderful thing. And we can look back and go, oh, you silly Sally, like a few wrong turns there. But when you're in it, you really believe you're doing everything for the right reasons. Like, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And to break that cycle is a little bit strange. And there's almost like a badge of honor that comes with it, because even though you said you're doing what most people were doing, you would have definitely been doing a little bit more than what most people were. And it's like, no, but it's okay, because look how fit and healthy I am. When did you, I guess, start to recognize things were getting a little bit off path, whether it be social anxiety around food or maybe avoiding social events? When did the I'm just doing it for health sort of turn into, I don't know, I guess it's kind of taking over?
Look, it's I can look back on it now exactly like what you just said. Hindsight is wonderful. I can look back at it now, but when I was in the thick of it all, I found it really hard to put my finger on when it did become an issue. I think the biggest, I never really thought that the training was a problem, but I think it was the other factors that made me realize that this was actually not healthy. And that was one of the biggest and most difficult things that I had to sort of realize, is that I was telling myself I was healthy and I was doing all of this for my health, but what my body was telling me was the complete opposite of that. So I think when I realized that this wasn't normal, how I was feeling, because I would feel anxious if I couldn't train. I would be just racked with guilt if I couldn't train. I would never really miss anything. I would have my rest day was not really a rest day, but on my days off, I still was active. I was always squeezing in workouts on holidays, or no matter where I went, I never missed it. And then I realized that was a problem, that it was interfering with my happiness. I was prioritizing that over the things that mattered to me. And then, I think realizing that not everyone felt like how I did around food. And that also slowly it's very sneaky. It sneaks up on you. I just didn't realize that all of a sudden, well, it felt like all of a sudden, but it wasn't, that I was feeling really anxious around food and not having control over what I was eating. That's been a big thing that's come up for me, is the control.
It's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. We just add in one rule, and then one more rule, and then one more rule, and everything seems fine, and we're getting positive changes from it, well, for the most part. And then all of a sudden you just get that one last rule, and suddenly you have that awareness of, wow, everything I do feels like a panic if it doesn't involve training or eating the food that I personally prepared or fitting in with the schedule that I predicted the night before. Suddenly everything is a shamble unless it's in perfect order. And it is that chaotic feeling, isn't it? It's sort of, unless it goes to plan, I can't cope. Could you maybe talk about some of the food rules that you had and what your eating habits were like, when things got pretty intense?
Yeah. No, what you just said, that honestly sounds like you were reading my mind. That's exactly how I felt. It was controlled, and if it wasn't, I was panicked.
Yeah.
So look, I have a bit of a complicated history with food and my body. I've always had pretty poor body image from a pretty young age, and I've gone through ebbs and flows where it hasn't been an issue, and then it has. So I had been going okay, probably like this is going, in the last probably 4-ish years, I was in an okay place with food. But I think things started to go downhill a bit once I did get sick and diagnosed with IBD. That really changed my relationship with food forever.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell us what IBD is, just in case no one knows?
Yeah, little sidetrack, absolutely. So IBD is inflammatory bowel disease. It's not IBS, not to be confused with that. IBD is an autoimmune condition. It's a chronic illness. There's no cure. There's 2 different types. There's Crohn's disease. A lot of people have probably heard of that one. And I've got its sister, I guess, which is ulcerative colitis, or UC. And the difference with IBD and IBS is that IBD causes damage to your insides, basically. Without going into too much detail, it is a condition that can end up in some pretty serious other health effects, so hospitalization, and some people can even die from it. I'm very lucky. I'm not at that serious, and my condition now is quite well managed, but it is it really impacts with what you can eat. A lot of doctors will have told me, oh, it doesn't matter what you eat. You can eat a pretty normal diet. There's no correlation between that. And
I always find that statement interesting.
I know.
For like anything at all. It's like, but we've got a lot of evidence that says that's not true. Even for someone with no health concerns, just everything's going great. Your food choices do affect, how your body responds to things. Is there anyone in your family with IBD?
Not immediate family, but I do have some extended family that does. So it definitely is there's genetic predisposition for sure. My mum actually has an autoimmune disease as well, not IBD, but that actually does run in the immediate family, that sort of predisposition as well. But that's the other hard thing with it. There's no known cause. It's just something that happens to some people, and it can be a combination of genetics, stressful events, an infection, and I kind of had a bit of all of the above. All happened in a perfect storm again, and then that's when I got really, really sick. So since then, before that, I'd had lots of issues with my gut and what I was eating, and I was always just told it was IBS. So after that, I was at least able to put my finger on it and go, well, I have this, and this is causing all of these horrific symptoms that I'm getting. So I went on my journey then to figure out what foods that was.
Can I ask on the timeline of things, and thank you for being so open about that, because I know the colitis side of things. I actually have a few friends whose, say, parents or aunties or uncles have got it, and in all different extremes, but it does tend to be sort of sprinkled throughout the family. So it's not every generation, it's not every second. It's just, you've got, say, 30 people in your family and there's 5 that do have it. So it's common enough within the gene pool, but not, it's interesting how it kind of sprinkles its way around. I guess I was just wondering, because there is quite a link between extreme dieting and IBS symptoms, because we're just not giving our microbiome all the things that it needs, and it freaks out. Did you, and I guess the diagnosis of IBS becomes quite tricky then too, because what we go to our GP with actually is the symptoms of IBS, because I was diagnosed with that too, which was a misdiagnosis. It was purely just because I was under eating and my stomach acids and everything weren't coping. Did you originally start to get those symptoms when you were sort of really dieting quite intense, or had that started before your health journey sort of began?
I actually think it probably started once I had begun dieting and getting into my health and exercise in quotation marks. That was because it goes back, honestly, probably about six or 7 years. I have struggled with gut issues. And that's probably when I started to go on that path of, and, you know, I was dieting. I never used the word dieting, but that was what I was doing, and I was losing weight and that sort of thing. And then, look, then I've had my condition under control for a little while. I still have, and I still definitely do have symptoms, but I think the remainder of some of them is exactly what you just said. It was because of the undereating that was causing some of those ongoing symptoms, which have improved since I've been on my recovery journey. So it's just fascinating, and I'll never sit here and be like, it is this that is causing what's happening with my gut. I think it's a combination of all of those things. But I think the catalyst to really tip off my downward spiral with my relationship with food and my body was being diagnosed with IBD, because I lost so much control over all of that. I couldn't exercise, I couldn't eat, couldn't get out of bed. I was in hospital. To me, that felt like the worst thing. And I thought, oh, I've lost, I'm going to lose all my fitness and strength. I look back, like, that's the least of your problems. But at the time, it was really tough to lose all of that. And I couldn't go to work or anything like that. So when I was well enough to be able to do all that, I sort of jumped back into it without adapting to my new situation. So I then went about trying to figure out the food with what's triggering me. And I did get some help. I did get some assistance with nutrition professionals. So I did things like the Fodmap diet. Not a diet, it's a challenge, trying to figure out my intolerances with that. And I did figure out that I do react really, really strongly to gluten and dairy and onions, actually.
And onions in everything.
It's in everything. I'm not great with garlic either, but look, it's better than it used to be because I have done the whole reintroduction thing, but they were my sort of top triggers. So when I did that, when I was doing that elimination diet, I don't know if you've ever done it or known anyone who's had to do it, but it's obviously a medical diet. It's not something that you should be doing for any other reason than that. But because it is so restrictive, you generally lose weight. And so I did, without meaning to, which people commented on. And I really feel like from there, that's sort of when I really became fixated on my body and the size of my body and wanting to stay that way. So I think there was many other rules that I didn't even realize were rules that sort of came in after that. I really didn't, I think borderline, a lot of what was happening was orthorexic as well, which I've spoken about with my doctor and things like that. But it just, that's the thing, isn't it? With those food rules, you don't even realize that it's a rule until you
well, because I think that the intention behind them is so innocent at the start.
Exactly.
Like even how you said that elimination diet side of things, it's like, that's a short-term protocol, like it is literally a protocol. But then all of a sudden you start to get positive feedback, and maybe during that time your stomach does feel better. So rather than only focusing on, no, this is a short period of time we're meant to be doing this for, it's like, oh, but my gut feels good and it hasn't in a really long time. I really like this. Oh, and look, people are noticing I feel good because they told me I look good. And then boom, you've just fallen into the trap, like so easily too, because you're looking good, you're feeling good. This is the solution. I don't need to try anything else. This works. And then for people who like routine like we do, it's again, as you said earlier, it's like the perfect storm of, I've got limited food choices. It's really easy to food prep, super easy to cook. Like, this feels simple. This feels like it's meant to be for me.
It feels safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and you were on the pill during this time as well. So you were sort of having breakthrough bleeds, or do you come off the pill at this point?
So I came off the pill not too long after being diagnosed with IBD because, and this was after a conversation with my GP, and they sort of said, look, your body's not absorbing it. It's not absorbing anything right now. So there's not really any point in being on it. So you should probably stop taking it, see what happens, and then we'll talk about what other contraception methods are available to you once you've sort of, see how
Your
things are.
systems calm down.
Yeah. So that was the plan. I never had a problem with the pill or anything like that. I was happy to stay on it, but it was purely, that was the decision I made with my doctor at the time. So I just went off it and waiting. And after about, I think 3 months, I sort of realized, I thought this is a bit strange. Went to my doctor, and then she said, oh, we'll just wait, just see how things go sometimes. And it does take some people a long time to just get it back because of how long they've been on the pill. But she said after 6 months, and we need to start looking at things. So I think I came off the pill, I was diagnosed in 2019. So I think it was all sort of happening at the same time. Me coming off the pill, trialing all this stuff with my food, and then it basically didn't come back after I came off the pill for a long time.
And when did the red flag start to show? Was it about 6 months when you went back to your doctor and you still hadn't had your period that your doctor started to go, oh, okay, let's investigate? Or, because you did have so much going on at the time, not only just obviously the physical stress from training all the time, and then your nutrition had changed, but your body had been through so much just with the hospitalization and the IBD. Like, your body really did have a rough 12 months, to say the least. When did your doctors, I guess, start to pay more attention and, I guess, care more about the fact that you didn't have a period? Or was it something that you had to go to them and be like, hey, it's still not here, let's do something? Because unfortunately, many of us go through these cycles of just doctors going, it's okay, don't worry about it, it'll come when it is ready. And to a degree, yes, it will come when it's ready, but we need steps, we need protocols, we need freedom, really.
Yeah, most definitely. I was really lucky that I had a GP at the time she was really good. It can be hard, especially when you live somewhere like I do, where we have really limited access to a variety of healthcare practitioners. So we still have doctors and a hospital, but you definitely are limited in the specialists and the sorts of people you can go and see. But anyway, my GP at the time was amazing. She was really onto it, and she said, come back after 6 months. And if it's not back, we'll start to do some more investigation. So, and she said exactly the same thing that you said. She said it could be a whole number of things. Your body has been through so much with you being so sick. Like I wasn't able to keep food down. I wasn't eating properly purely because of that. So she said, we don't know. We just need to look into things a little bit further, rule out any of the nasties. So I felt a bit reassured by that. We've got a plan. Let's go. Let's start investigating. So from that was a real minefield, I guess, of all the different tests. And so I think I had lots of blood tests for my hormones. And then once they didn't really indicate anything too obvious, that was when I got referred to a specialist. I went to a gynecologist. And I think anyone who's in that position who hasn't got their period in a while, it's definitely worth having a chat to your GP, because hopefully you would be lucky to have someone like I did who can identify that this is not okay. But if you don't, at least go to a GP to say to them, I think something is wrong, and see what sort of tests you can get from there to see if there is something else that's happening. Because once you have all those tests, you can then rule out the things that are perhaps a bit more sinister.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happened, I guess, when you went to the gynecologist? Because I guess this is where everything slowly escalated into, oh, well, there is things going on. How do I fix it? What do I do? Did your gyno know about HA? Was that something that you found yourself? Because I know for most of the guests who come on here, it's, Dr. Google showed us no period, now what? And we all just went, oh, that's me. What was it like for you?
And you look, thank goodness for Nicola Rinaldi. I tell you what, I would never have come across HA if it weren't for the internet and social media. So that's why, that's part of the reason why I'm here today. And I, really love talking about these issues, and, people like yourself and Sarah King, they're the sorts of places where I found out about HA, because I did not hear about it mentioned at all in those early days when I was trying to figure out what was going on. And it was honestly one of the most stressful times of my life, very close to being messed around and worked out what was happening when I was getting diagnosed with IBD, because no one could tell me why I wasn't getting my period. Because I had all the blood tests. I then had an ultrasound done by the specialist and some more tests done by him. And he told me I had PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
So that just blew me away. I was just devastated. I did not in a million years think that would have been what was going to come out of his mouth. Because he said I met the criteria. Essentially, I had the cysts on my ovaries, and I was having some really bad acne at the time. So technically that was enough to fit the criteria. I didn't have any weird hormone levels happening. Also, I had the missing periods. So he sort of said, you've got lean PCOS. That was pretty much the diagnosis. And he said, you can go back on the pill to get your period back. When it's time to have a baby, come see me and I'll give you some fertility drugs. And I just was not okay with that. Many tears were shed, many talks I had with my partner and family. And I just decided I don't want to do that. This can't be the only option. I need time. I need to go figure out what else I can do. Surely there's something I can do to try and get this PCOS under control on my own without having to have medical intervention. Sure, if it doesn't work, then I'll come back and I will, I would never.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe in, Western medicine and all that sort of thing, but I just really, it didn't sit right with me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So he mentioned something else about in my blood. There's another thing that can happen is you can have a pituitary tumor. I'm sure you've probably heard about.
Yeah, I got scanned for one.
So did I. Ruling out literally everything.
Yeah, everything but the over exercise and under eating.
Yeah.
You look healthy. It won't be that.
Yeah, you're a healthy weight. And
but that's a really scary thing too. I remember getting the slip for that and being like, oh my God. Because I was so wanting a reason for why my period wasn't around. And this was way before I learned of HA, of course. And my blood work was low, but not zero. Like it ended up at zero later on, but at this point in time, it wasn't quite zero. And then I remember getting the slip for the MRI and being like, oh my God, like what if this is the reason I don't have my period? Like this is terrifying. And I'm still glad I had that test done because, for some people, maybe that is the case. That's exactly what's causing it. But, I just remember in that moment being so scared.
It is. It's a scary thing to hear. You should go get an MRI on your brain. There could be something in there. So I was massively freaked out as well. But I had, by that point in time, because this is like 8 months or so post pill, no period, I had heard of HA, I think, by then, because I had been researching PCOS and, trying to learn more about my hormones and what they should be. So it was kind of there in the back of my mind, thinking about HA, but I was so in denial at that point. I thought, that's not me. I'm not that extreme. I'm not even that skinny. My BMI is not too low. And I just completely brushed it aside. And my specialist, I think he asked me once what my exercise was like. And then the next time he saw me, he said, oh, and you don't exercise much, do you? So he just obviously was not listening to anything I was saying. So I was fed up at that point. And what did I do after that? I basically said he really wanted me to go on the pill because he's like, you need to go on the pill to protect your bones. which I've since
Yeah.
found out is not the case anyway. So I basically asked him, can you give me 6 months to do what I can to try and get this back on my own? Because I just wanted some time to try and go and work things out and see if there was something else out there. And then that's when I sort of started to look into HA, learning a bit more about what it was. But it wasn't until I went and saw she's a functional, like, integrative GP, until I saw her, that she was able to look at my hormones and talk to me about everything, about my lifestyle factors and everything else that no one else had asked me about. That was when I was able to say, this is the problem. This is why my period's missing. Because like we said 100 times, hindsight is great, but I can now look back and go, like, my estrogen levels were nothing. My hormones were just flatlined. I had nothing there, and no wonder I felt so crap.
Yeah. I just want to backtrack because I find it interesting how that doctor on that second appointment, which thankfully he did ask the question or suggestion that he had, because it made you sort of go, well, you're no good for me, you're not paying attention. But even just the way how he said, you don't do much exercise, do you? Because let's pretend that previous conversation hadn't occurred. Like, he's got no idea about your exercise. The way that was presented, of course, as someone who over exercises, who doesn't want to be told to stop exercising, you would answer as, yeah, no, not much, because they've kind of cornered you into saying it. And I guess coming from a space where I do work on mindset, and I've spoken to so many women as well as done my own work, I'm so interested in how people present questions and statements, because the language they choose is so important to how people reciprocate their answers, or continue on with conversation, or make choices. It's so important. And just the way how he sort of said, oh, you don't do much, do you? It would have taken so much for you to go, oh no, I actually train 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day. Because at that point in time, you're training that much because you think it's for health and it's for all the right reasons. And to anybody else, you've got some people who don't like exercise. And if they had have said that to them, going, you don't exercise too much, do you? They would have gone, oh, I do a little bit, because they sort of want someone to say, take a step back, because they kind of don't like it that much anyway. But I just, especially specialists, to sort of corner in things, it baffles me. And then how you said, the pill to protect your bones, it's like, isn't anyone doing research? Like,
it honestly makes me sad. I look back and I'm so disappointed, and that's why I do want to talk about things like this, because he could have so easily I could have just done exactly what he said. But you're exactly right. The way that he said that, and he made me feel, there's no way I was going to open up to him about what was going on in that space, because he didn't make me feel like I could. So
yeah. And that's the thing, creating space is the ultimate thing, isn't it? I mean, then you said you've gone to this integrative doctor who asked you questions. Yes. And didn't corner you into what your response is going to be. It's just like, well, I'm guessing anyway. It was very much like, what's work like? What's your relationship like? What's your, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, what do you do? What do you eat? What do you drink? What do you think? What's your downtime? And there's so many open questions, judgment free, to actually go, oh, okay, here's a picture of Leilani and what her life looks like. And here's all this potential of things that we can do to help you lead a better life. Like, it can be such a positive conversation and positive insight and positive exploration if it's executed correctly. Given you've seen this integrative doctor, when they come to you with all these questions, did you feel like you could be open about things because of the way it was executed? Like, it was quite a comfortable environment, or was there certain things that you kind of, took a notch down because you didn't want to say the whole truth?
I told her most things, because you're exactly right. The way that she did it was, she asked me about everything, and there was no judgment. And she helped me, verbalize everything that was happening and what I was doing. And then she could put it together in a way that showed, look at this whole picture of your life and what you are doing, and all of the stresses that it's putting on your body, from exercise, diet, mental. Like, it was just the whole thing. And I realized, oh my goodness, it's coming from everywhere. But there were the biggest thing I think I probably held back from talking to her about for a little while was really how sick I was with what I was since diagnosed with as an eating disorder. That was something that I didn't tell, and I still really haven't told people about for a long time, because I just I couldn't face it. I think at first I didn't want to admit it. But I was since able to talk to her about it because I also see a psychologist. So that's probably been the biggest, most helpful thing. It has been having all these supportive people around me. I couldn't have gotten to where I am without all of them. So she really helped me be able to talk about it and not be worried about the judgment, I guess, either. And my doctor definitely did not judge me. She said, I know. Get it out.
Sometimes that's nice, isn't it? Like if it's the right person done at the right time, when someone goes like, I know you're having a hard time, or like, I know you're scared to eat, it's sort of like, oh, good, someone knows. Because it's so much of it is hidden behind closed doors and this show of your healthiest self. And it can feel like you're just hiding from the world all the time. And then for someone to actually look in a non-judgmental way and go, I know what's going on. I hear you. We can do better. It's like, oh, okay. Let's have a look at this a little bit more. At that point in time with your eating disorders, was it the orthorexia, like you're very just restrictive with food choices, or did you have other things going on as well?
It definitely, the orthorexia has always been, that was probably there for quite a long time, probably almost my whole, not my whole, but a large part of my fitness and health journey. But the biggest issue that I was seeking and am seeking treatment for is bulimia. So I had other behaviors that were compensatory, from over exercising to purging, binging. And, these are all things that, exactly what you said, are happening behind closed doors. So I have spoken a lot to like my healthcare professionals about this sort of parallel that exists. And I think it does happen for a lot of women in a similar situation who appear so healthy on the outside, but they aren't behind those closed doors, is that people can see the exercising and the healthy eating. And, and I was and always have eaten what is a lot, in quotation marks, a lot of food. I didn't not eat in front of people. I was always eating, and everyone knows I love food and I have a huge appetite, but it was what was happening when no one was around. That's when that became the problem. And that was when I realized, this is sort of tying my big picture all in together. That was the point when I went, this is not normal, and you can't keep telling yourself that it is. You need to change.
Can I ask a couple of questions about the bulimia? Purely from, like, I was bulimic as well, so I 100% understand you. I guess questions one, because orthorexia, obviously good quality food choices, because in a nutshell that's what we're doing, also leads to low caloric intake. Therefore the binging and purging becomes uncontrollable. It's like something just takes over your mind, you don't even know what you're doing, and the next minute you're throwing up, and it's just this whirlwind of craziness. And some part of it you want, some part of it you're terrified of, and it's a crazy time. Do you, I guess, as you're recovering, and have you noticed that the more you eat throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, has helped you reduce the binges? Because I know for me, my binges, alongside many other things, because you can't just click them away, I did notice though that the more I started to eat and talk myself into, like, it's okay that I've had this food, it's okay that I feel full, I'm just going to ride the wave, the emotions will come, that my binging episodes and purging did slowly reduce just from having more throughout the day. Did you notice that as well?
Hugely, yeah. And it's only after doing that for a longer period of time, like eating enough, did I actually notice it, because I would hear it all the time. And, if you go on Instagram or Google, how to stop binging or anything like that, people say you need to eat more, and it will stop. And I thought, that's ridiculous. There's no way that can work. And I hate to be that person who now stands there and says it does work.
That's true. Oh yeah, because it's just our bodies and brains are so smart, isn't it? It's like, you're not giving me enough, so I'm going to give you that intense hunger so much that you physically can't say no. And that's what it's like if you've got bulimia. You can't, like, you try so hard, and until you get control over it, because you absolutely can get control over it, it feels like you can't say no. And I guess that's where it feels like you can never not be bulimic again, because it's so intense in that moment. And having the strength to go, all right, I feel a little bit full, I'm not comfortable, all I can think about is throwing it up, but I'm just going to sit here on my hands and I'm not going to do a thing. I feel like I'm going to cry. I feel like I'm just not going to survive. I feel guilty. I feel all of these horrible things, but I'm just going to wait. 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 And then you start to realize that, okay, that was a horrible hour because I didn't throw up, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. But the emotions passed. I survived. I think I feel a little bit better for not throwing up than what I would have if I had have thrown up. But it is a massive practice of doing that over and over and over again before you can actually go, I think I'm in control of my bulimia now. Like, it is very much a practice until you get control over it. Did you have similar things happen with you, or was it a little bit different?
Yeah, no, very, very similar. I think the hardest part was that I had convinced myself for so long, and you probably were the same, that it wasn't a big deal. It's all right.
Yeah, and just one more time, and then I won't do it again.
Yeah, and no one,
Yeah.
no one knows about it. No one needs to know. So it was really hard to sort of reconcile that was happening. I was doing it, and then I'm turning around and having these beliefs about what health is, and they were just so far apart that I just thought, I this isn't what I want to do anymore. So yeah, you're right that the process of going through that recovery and stopping all of that it was one of the toughest things I've ever done, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Look, I definitely think my bulimia recovery was more difficult than anything I'd ever done.
Me too.
Because it is a war in your head.
Yeah.
Like, it is chaos. A war you can definitely win, but it's, of all the things I look back on, that was tough. And especially because it's tricky, and you might have heard in other episodes, or people listening might have heard, there was times where I started throwing up again, and I thought nothing of it. I had really bad heartburn or indigestion, and I needed to feel better. And my husband pulled me up on it one night. Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing this again? Like, it's been such a long time. It's been like years. And I was like, oh no, I just had heartburn. He goes, no, you don't. Like, you've been doing this all week. What are you doing? And I just burst into tears. I'm like, oh my God, I honestly, I didn't know. It just snuck back in that I was full and I didn't like it and the food had to go. And I labeled it as indigestion and heartburn. And honestly, unless he had pulled me up on it, I'm not sure how much, I think I would have kept doing it for a really long time, because I didn't even recognize it. It was so bizarre how it just crept in, and it was okay. Like, I remember responding to him like, oh no, it's nothing. You're over dramatizing. I just had to feel better. And that's where eating disorders are so complicated, and you need to be so witty about it, or have someone with you who's in the know to at least pull you up sometimes, because sometimes you don't know. And it's okay that those things happen. It's, dealing with them. Well, what's next? What's the action plan? We've done this before, we can do it again. Has your journey with bulimia sort of been a bit of a roller coaster? And I'm just going to ask one question because I know I'm going to forget it. Back when you had the IBD, you mentioned that you couldn't keep your food down. So obviously that was because you were really sick.
Yeah.
But I remember, I guess what caused me to have my first binge and purge was I ate some bad food a few months earlier. Went to a Chinese restaurant. It was awful. I felt really sick and I threw up. And I just remember being like, oh gosh, I feel better. And that's where it stopped. It was not a binge and purge, not one little bit. It was literally just, I ate something dodgy and I could feel it unsettling in my stomach, and I felt better. And then months down the track, I'd gone through this really, comp prep, dieting, all that sort of thing. Felt great, looked great, positive experience. And I think I just ate a little bit too much. And by too much, I mean, I probably ate a normal meal, quote unquote, like not a bodybuilding prep meal. And I felt full. And that full feeling led me to feeling disgusted. like as if you feel full, as if you ate that much, how dare you? And my mind just like slingshot back to months earlier when I maybe had food, like borderline food poisoning, about to get it, I don't know. And that's all I could think about. I'm like, oh, this will make me feel better. And I did it. And then it did make me feel better. And then woof, there goes the next 2 years stuck being bulimic. Did any of your journey sort of have attachments to that time when you were really sick and couldn't keep food down?
Strangely enough, I don't think so. I think purely because I was so sick, I would have done anything to be able to not feel nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
But I relate to that feeling of feeling full and that being the catalyst for what happens afterwards. So it definitely was a roller coaster. And I'm trying to think if I was unwell before I got sick with IBD, maybe a little bit, but I think it was more, it just started to happen more and more frequently over the years. And then I think since starting my recovery and, you know, seeking help and all that sort of thing, it definitely has been a roller coaster, like you were talking about. But something that was really emphasized to me was the importance of not letting things be a relapse, just a slip up. Slip ups are okay. What you do afterwards.
Yeah.
So I, at the moment, you know, like I'm still definitely, you know, it's only been, oh gosh, like 9 months or so that I've been fully committed to recovery. So I'm still very much, you know, working through lots of things, but
that's still really great though. Well done.
Thank you.
Like, things have really well done.
Things have been really good for a while though. Like I was really lucky to be able to get a handle on things pretty quickly, because I think I got to a point where I was ready to put everything into being the best version of myself. And I think that it's not going to happen unless you're ready for that, and no one can make you ready for that.
Of course.
That makes sense.
No, absolutely. You need to be ready for the message to come through, because it's probably been there the whole time, but you know, we have our barriers up and it's like, no, I know better. And then you finally hit a point of, wow, something's got to give here. I can't survive like this. I don't want to be 60 and still doing this.
No.
Yeah, and when the penny drops, it really drops, doesn't it? Because it's like suddenly you're ready to seek support. And do you find that, I guess, because we're riddled with diet culture and there is so much eating less is best, and we applaud everyone for choosing the salad, and it might not be that way in all groups, but it tends to be amongst, you know, the HA community. That's the kind of words we live in. But I found that, you know, bulimia is super common, like so common, and of course because it goes hand in hand with under eating. But I find that, including myself, there's a lot more shame attached to it, because if you were to openly say to someone, I'm on 1,200 calories or something, the general public goes, oh, wow, 1,200 calories, I could never eat that much. How do you do it? But if you were to say to someone, I throw up my food, it's like, oh, you know, it's a really bad, and I get it, because that's uncomfortable for someone who's never experienced it, never dealt with it, never been in that mind, because it's like, but why would you do that? Like, I can completely understand the other side of it, 100%. But did you find the bulimia was a little bit harder to come forward with, to even say your doctor, compared to over-exercising, food rules? Because for me as well, I found that was my last thing. That was the last thing anyone knew about. And then once I said it, I was like, oh, I actually feel kind of free and liberated about it. It's like, yes, I did that and I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Great. Did you have similar things, or it was all kind of the same? It's like all of it's hard to talk about.
I feel it the same. It's definitely been the eating disorder part has been the hardest part to talk about, because you're right, there is such a stigma and shame attached to that you think people are going to think less of you, or that, yeah, like you said, people don't understand. They don't understand, and I get that, and I don't want you to understand. I hope you don't.
Yeah.
It's
no,
something
you don't need to experience it. I don't want you to experience it, and yes,
but I just want it to be more acceptable to talk about, and for people to feel like it's not something that's shameful to talk about, because it does, like you said, it's so prevalent. And it's something that is kept so secret because it can happen without people knowing. And then why would you want to talk about it? Because of the reaction that you get from some people. So I'm even nervous talking about it today, but I'm just the same as what you just said. I just feel like it's something that should be on the same level as all the other health issues that I've had. It's just something else that I've been working on to overcome, and it's all out there now that I can talk about it and work on it all at the same time.
I'm so grateful for you to be willing to talk about it, because there's so many people listening right now going like, oh my gosh, that's me. And maybe by us sharing might give them the confidence to just tell one person, because that's where it all starts, isn't it? Just being able to share it with one person. And it's like, okay, that actually wasn't so bad. My heart's still racing. I'm finding it a little bit difficult to breathe, and I'm not sure how the next 10 minutes is going to go down. But for the most part, it feels kind of nice that someone knows. And, you know, pick your person wisely. Pick your best friend or your partner or your mum or your dad or your doctor. Like,
would actually be what I did was, sorry to interrupt a bit.
No, go for it, please.
Something that I really like, I'll always talk about this because it was so helpful. The first thing I did, and the first person I actually vocalized what was happening to, was the Butterfly Foundation. I called them, and I was on my own, and I just thought, this is it. This is rock bottom. I don't know where to go from here. I don't want to tell anyone that I love, because I don't want to see them be hurting because of me.
The burden.
It is.
So I felt the same way. I love my mum and tell her everything. I'm like, I can't tell her. She'd be so upset. She'd be so upset knowing this.
This has to, I'll just tell someone else. So if you're in the same boat, that would be what I would say, is talk to someone else, because you don't have to tell everyone that you know ever, but you can, but it doesn't have to be straight away. So I called them, and they were amazing. And then they put me in touch with, I think I did have to go to my GP to get a referral, but they gave me something I could fill out and take to my GP, so I didn't have to talk to them. Could give them this
fantastic. That's a great tip for anyone listening.
So good. So I just was like, here's this. And then they gave me a referral to someone that the Butterfly Foundation had given me as a list to refer to, who is now my psychologist, who I've been seeing for the past, it's really been a year now. And she is just, I cannot speak highly enough of her. She's been just, absolutely incredible. So that would be my probably biggest suggestion for, if you don't feel like you can talk to people around you, totally get it. But there's other people you can talk to.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's such a wonderful thing, because sometimes people can be like that. It's like, maybe I don't have that person, or I do have the person, I don't want them thinking differently or being upset or anything like that. So now I feel like I can't. And I guess another great thing about, the Butterfly Foundation is they're set up for people that are having troubling times, and they know exactly what steps to give you to progress forward, like fill in this form, take it to your GP. And for the most part, I'm pretty sure they're on phone and email as well. So it's like, you don't even have to be looking at someone in the face. You can just grit your teeth, talk on the phone, and just get it out there. And sometimes, not having that emotional connection can help you let it all out too, because it's like, I don't know you, you don't know me. Like, this is totally blank canvas here.
It's all confidential,
it's all confidential.
It makes it so much easier. Yeah. And I think that she even said, you can email me, because she sent me an email with some things, like with the resources in it, and said, you can email me if you need. So yeah, I can't speak highly enough of them.
I'll pop the show notes, the Butterfly Foundation, as well, for anyone listening. All right, so I feel like we've covered lots here, haven't we? But no, thank you again for sharing so much. You're seeing the integrative doctor. You're recognizing ways that you can improve on your life, food, training, general stress, I'm guessing. What come next for you? What were the big pinnacles? And obviously, what led to the recovery of your period? What were you doing?
Yes, this is all the important stuff. Well, because I think once the doctor sort of put into perspective what was happening, and this was even without me talking to her about, the eating disorder, she could still work with everything that I told her, help me see that, at least for the meantime, training high intensity for, as much as I was every day. And at the time I was also training for a 20-kilometer run that I was doing part of a triathlon.
Wow.
So yeah, I was, this is actually a little bit off track, but just a bit of perspective of the sort of things I was doing that I didn't realize was so bad for my health was I was doing all my training for this 20-kilometer run, and I would train on an empty stomach. I would run 10, 20 Ks on an empty stomach because I thought that's what I get told you, it's better for you to train on an empty stomach. I didn't really surround myself with the sort of information where, like for athletes, where that's the complete opposite. That's not what you should be doing. So, but back then I didn't know any better, and I thought that I was doing the right.
And that's the key, isn't it? It's like at the time when we're making these choices and decisions, we really didn't know any better.
Right.
And so therefore you never thought to research anything, because it's like, well, this is what we do, especially cardio fast in the morning. That was a craze it has been a craze for years. Yeah. And it probably still is, unless you start looking into hormone health and all those sorts of things where it's like, please don't do it, please. But at the time, it's like, and also, you don't want to run with a full tummy, and then you create all the reasons why you must do your running fasted and why you must do your HIIT workouts fasted.
I have now learned that it's all even better when you're properly fueled and you have your period. So
for the people out back, fuel.
So once I so the doctor was basically like, when you finish this run, so this was in February this year, she's like, when you finish this, no more running, because that's one of the worst things you can do when you're trying to get your hormones back and at a normal level.
Sorry, just some context for the running as well, because how long would it take you to do 10K?
Just under an hour, I think.
Yeah, because for general, and I'm super general, hormone restoration, not HA specific, general hormone balancing, PCOS, things like that, there tends to be a 30-minute window. If you are going to do any exercise, condense it to 30 minutes. You won't get too many cortisol spikes, all those sorts of things. Eat before and after, all those still apply. But, a 10K run, as you said, it takes around about an hour. So that's a long time to be exercising first thing in the morning on an empty stomach while trying to facilitate your hormones rising.
Yep. So I didn't really know that. So I think when I did my 20, I was doing 20K sometimes in the training as well. And I think I would have a banana and coffee, which isn't terrible, but it's not enough for that. So yeah, I think the running, it was more just like, and I love it. I love running and I do want to go back to it one day, but I just didn't realize that doing it like that as well was not that great for your hormones, among other things like intermittent fasting and all these other.
Oh, I know. I say it because like I did all the things too. We all do all the things because it's like, we'll do the next best thing that's meant to be the best for us, and you just hobble from one to the next, and it's fun because it's new. And then
little did I know, now I know better. And I think that's why I'll always say, don't just take the general messages that are out there to the public on whether it's social media or the internet or whoever. Like, talk to a trained professional, whether that's a doctor, someone who works in the nutrition space or the fitness space, whatever it is. Like, talk to them about what you should be doing to get the results you want, and make sure that it's not coming from that place of that diet culture, because I think that was a big trap I fell into, was that I would hear things like, train on an empty stomach, it's better for fat burning, or you should be leaving this much time overnight to not eat and give your stomach time to rest and
heal. Don't let your digestion run all through the night. And
all these things that the general population probably needs to take on board, but not someone like me who was already over exercising and not eating enough.
Yeah, but no, so that's really important what you just said there too, because a lot of these, I'm going to quote unquote health messages go out to the general public to help people that tend to be overeating, sedentary lifestyle. So if you turn around and go, maybe have your last meal at 8 p.m., give yourself some time to digest, recommendation to people who potentially are eating up until midnight, 2 a.m, snacking, doing whatever they do, and then as soon as they wake up they eat breakfast again. Maybe for them, giving themselves 2 hours to not eat before bed or 1 hour to not eat before bed means that they drop a little bit of weight. And for someone who's obese, that could be a positive thing for them to do. And I just love what you said though, like you need to be really critical about the information that's coming to you. And is that tailored for you, or is it a general thing, or, what specifically would help you in that statement, and would it? Because we hear all these things thrown out, as you said, and it's so catchy. It's like, well, I'm just trying to be my best. I'll give that a go. I'll give that a go. I'll give that a go. But as you so beautifully stated, for someone who's already overtraining and under exercise, overtraining and under eating, we need no more added feedback or suggestions. We've got enough suggestion, time to take a step back.
That takes a really high level of self-awareness, doesn't it? That's something that
absolutely
not hard to come by.
Yeah, because in that moment as well, you really do think you're doing all the best things. And then you've got all the other added input as to compliments and the fact that you, like, as you said, you love running. Yeah. So you weren't necessarily running for weight. You could have also liked the fact that it maintains your weight, or that it's good for your body, or, there's definitely positive attachments to it. But for the most part, the way you described it anyway, please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you just went for your morning run because you liked running.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it did have that tiny element, like you said, of influencing my shape, like with all of my exercise. But I still, at the end of the day, it's something I do really enjoy, and I loved. I did that run, and it was in a triathlon, so I was in a team. It was such fun, so much fun, such a great atmosphere. I smashed my PB, like it was great, and there was no thoughts about any of the other stuff that had been happening or motivations. It's all because it's fun. So it's really hard to sort of define when it crosses that line to becoming something that's not for enjoyment and it's not helpful for you. So having people help you identify that, if you can't do it yourself, is really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened when, I guess, you were told the running need to be cut down? Because that's a tough pill to swallow. As you said, you're really enjoying it. You want to feel better. For as long as you can probably remember, running makes you feel better from personal perspective, and also advice given to us. How did you feel about the first suggestions made, and what did they lead into?
I was so resistant to change at first. And that's why I sort of say I was in a bit of like quasi recovery from probably this time last year, probably like November last year, when I started seeing the psychologist. That was sort of the first steps taking to try to, get on the track towards recovering my period. But yeah, so until I finished the triathlon, because the doctor sort of said, okay, once you finish that, I need you to cut back. I want you to cut back on your exercise, walk, do yoga. I need you to eat more carbs, blah, blah, make all these changes. And I was really, really resistant, because I knew it was going to be a huge change. So the thing that really helped push me and change my mindset was probably two things, but the two biggest things were, the first was this doctor got me to do a bone density scan, which I'd never done before. And I thought, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'll go and do it. Didn't think it would be a problem. And then I actually got told I had osteopenia, which is, it's the thing before osteoporosis. Yeah. So I thought, I can't be 28 years old and have brittle bones. I thought that's not, this isn't okay. So, and it really freaked me out, to be honest. It really frightened me to go, you can't prioritize having a small body and being fit over having brittle bones. I'm so young. So that really, really, really gave me that motivation. And then the other was, I really wanted to get my period back naturally, because I do want to have a family at some point. So I'm getting a little bit older, and I thought, this isn't, I'm not happy to not have a period, because I know sometimes younger women, when it goes missing, they're like, yay, I don't have a period, this is great, I don't have to deal with it. But for me, that was never it. I was always concerned. So those really made me go, okay, something needs to change. But so with working with the psychologist and the GP, and then I think the thing that really, really helped cement things and get me over that line to help get my period back was doing the Healing HA program with Sarah King. just because it gave me that accountability that the other, doctor and psychologist definitely gave me accountability, but they're only there, once every however often you were seeing them. Whereas doing these sorts of programs, it gave me access to one-on-one support often, and then also other people, other women who were in the same position, so we could bounce all that sort of,
which is really comforting too.
So it was just it's one of the best things I've ever done. So again, another recommendation is, if you can afford it and it's something that's accessible to you, is get that little bit more support and accountability from someone who specializes in helping women with HA, because it is something that's not, unfortunately, it's not something that a lot of health professionals know about.
A lot of things I get from women, and I was one of those women who, I need to do this by myself and I can't get any help and blah, 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 blah. And look, everyone's got their own healing journey, and I still do believe at the core of it, you know what's best for you. And I do look back now, because I think when I went through HA recovery, things had shifted a little bit, as the No Period Now What group was very active, and you had that support all the time, and it was a free resource. So I kind of had that as my main support, and honestly, it helped me so much, just knowing people were feeling the same way, they were going through the same things, that they had the same joys about eating a fear food, they had the same sadness when everyone's getting their period and you weren't getting yours, and like it wasn't isolating. It was a really lovely community. But I do look back now and go, oh, I wish I had executed getting additional help, because I'm grateful that I learned all the mindset stuff and everything that I did, because now I can do what I do. But the other part of me is like, oh, but you know what? If you just had to let someone in, you probably could have made it that little bit easier on yourself. So I love it when women share that they've been a part of communities in all different manners, because there's so many different people out there helping women recover from HA, because I tend to think now that can be part of the healing process, just being willing to go, you know what, this is one thing that I'm choosing to not do by myself. Like, I'm choosing to have support, I'm choosing to let people in, I'm choosing to just be the real me in front of this community, in front of this consultant, whatever you want to call it. Did you find some part of like getting assistance was liberating for you? And again, if it wasn't, like, no, but I'm curious to that insight, because it was definitely a shortfall of mine, having such resistance to getting additional help, because again, always grateful for everything the way it planned out, but I think it could have been a more graceful process, just having those sort of check-ins and things like that.
I think by the time I joined that program, I was at the point where I was willing to take anything I could get. And I just knew that I wasn't going to make any headway if I didn't get the extra support, because I had been so stuck for a long time. So, because I was very much the same as you, I didn't want anyone's help with anything. I just wanted to, do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I got to the point where I realized I actually want to get my period back quickly. I don't want to be stuck in this for any longer than I have to be. So that was when I was sort of willing to open up and talk about it in this group, and then also on my own social media. I think that was really liberating as well, was just letting go and just being open about it. And I really helped me, because you're right, everyone's different. Some people do not want to talk about it, and that's totally fine. But for me, I feel like it did help. But the other thing that I have, again, I can look back on and go, I think it was also that kind of perfectionist part of you that was like, I want to recover right. I want to do
program. Right. Give me the program.
And I'm going to do it exactly.
I've got a schedule. I've got a task list.
So I think for a while I definitely.
No, but again, it's whatever works for you. Because like I encourage that with my clients. Like, let's have like the same way we kind of got in this predicament is the same way we can get out, if we're using it in the right fashion, because there is safety and feeling of comfort in having a plan. And obviously the time you get your period back varies from woman to woman. Like, we know that. But if we can feel really great about all the decisions we're making, it just helps so much, rather than having constant resistance of, you know, that's not what I used to do. That's just being in a world of women that are like, yeah, you're making a great choice. Like, you're doing the best thing for your health. Good job. It feels a bit scary. It's okay. You did the right thing. It's like, okay, I just need a pat on the back sometimes. I just need reassurance sometimes.
Or
And
even the knowledge behind why you're doing those things that feel so crappy. You know, like I didn't want to take a break from exercise. I didn't want to start eating more. I didn't want to gain weight. But having that sort of knowledge to then, it let me trust the process, and it let me, you know that maybe while I'm not doing everything perfectly, it gave me, the knowledge to help me sit with all of the things that were so uncomfortable, and know that there was a really good reason why I was going through that tough feeling.
yeah, no, and that's where education and knowledge around things is so empowering, because it's like, if you can justify every action that you're taking, it feels more comforting. And same as when we first started training crazy and dieting crazy, well, not like food rules, right? All food rules were created from something that we had read that suggested we would feel better, look better. All of it. We didn't just pick them out of a hat and go, oh, that sounds good. It all come from information that we learned and we trusted. And HA recovery, as you beautifully said, like it's the same thing. It's like, give me the information that empowers me to make these decisions, because I know this is literally the magic script. Like, this is going to work. With your recovery, did you go all in? Did you stop all exercise? Did you, obviously you're eating more, in what capacity, I guess? Did you just start to bulk up your meals a little bit more? Did you calorie count at the start to make sure you're getting enough in? What were your action steps?
I had just before I started the program with Sarah, I made a decision to not go to the gym for 4 weeks. That was my promise. I made it. I spoke to my partner about it, and I told him, help make me accountable. I was like, I'm just not going to go for 4 weeks. Just have a break and see what happens, because I was feeling really burnt out by that point. I wasn't feeling any better, and I knew I was just not making the headway that I wanted. So by the time I got to Sarah's program, it was probably just after those 4 weeks. And because in those sorts of things, you can you get support from the qualified professional, who can then talk to you about, should you stop exercise? Should you dial it down? Like, how are you going to do it exactly? For me personally, we decided I would take a break, which I was not really thrilled about. But by that point, I'd already stopped for about a month. So I just did walking and yoga, days of complete rest. I stopped following a step count, because that's right. Before, I was like, when I was pre-HA recovery, I was not only just doing all that formal exercise, I was walking upwards of 15,000 steps a day. And I work in a sedentary desk job. So that was hours of walking on top of, the exercise. And now I don't have one. I don't have a step goal. So I cut that back. And then food-wise, I actually am a little bit different, I think, to a lot of people who've been in HA recovery, in that I never counted calories, really. I had my Fitness Pal, and I have an idea of calories just from like past things. But when I was at the height of, things not being great with my food, I wasn't actually calorie counting. So I didn't want to go back to counting to make sure that I was getting enough, because I knew it would just be
facilitating a nasty.
So another reason why it was great to hand that over to someone else and go, give me some ideas of how big, like what sort of things should I be putting in meals,
like a visual cue.
And like I did have some measurements in the beginning to make sure, because I was so skewed and warped with what I thought was a serve of things, especially things like carbs, like rice and pasta and all that sort of stuff. So I did measure that for a while, but recently, like now, these days, I don't measure it. But it helped me just make sure I was putting enough in there, and I knew that it was going to be enough calories. I was eating every 2 to 3 hours, very mechanical eating, which I hated.
It's tough at the start, isn't it? Because it's like, you're not even hungry and you're just making yourself chow down this food. Whether it's a snack or a meal, it doesn't matter. It just feels so forceful. And I think everyone listening can relate to that stage of it, where it's like, but I'm not even hungry. I'm so sick of food.
Sounds so bizarre to me, because I love food, but you don't really know it until you have to physically do it, when you're just like, I am not hungry. And prior to eating more, I very much had a lot of extreme hunger, and someone who actually I felt like I have a lot of similarities in that too was, Stephanie Buttermore. Yeah. I was like, I felt like her. I felt like there was no amount of food that could satisfy me.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought of eating enough, the thought of me at one point going, oh, I cannot eat anymore. I don't want to eat anymore. It was just bizarre. But that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I would eat enough and then I didn't.
And that's where the trust comes too, because it's like, that fullness does exist. Because you think that you're a bottomless pit that can never be filled. And that's why you don't try and fill it, because what it needs to be filled is too much. Not going to do it. That's dangerous, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then, you follow the process and it's like, oh, wow, I'm full. I do work.
And I also didn't really enjoy that. I've finally been, it's totally part of my routine now, is the eating as soon as I get up if I'm exercising, even before a walk. It was very much, you need to eat even before you walk, especially in HA recovery. Maybe normal people are fine, but not in recovery. And I detested it, because old me was a pre-workout or a coffee down the hatch.
Hold off that first meal as long as you can.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you eat, you get hungry anyway. So why would you?
Standing there at 5 a.m. in the kitchen, mushing a banana in my mouth, just like wanting to vomit, because I was like, I can't eat this. But now it's fine. It's just part of, I just get up early and do that.
But I love that you're sharing this though, because, when you're going through those stages, you just sit there and go, is everyone else doing this? Like, are you sure this is right? So for whoever's listening or watching the YouTube, it's like, this is what we do. And it works. It does. Trust the process.
It really does. The other thing that was then really helpful was trying to manage stress as well, because for me that is a huge part of the puzzle, especially with my work. And then of course I decided
and study. You're a busy woman.
I was really worried about that adding to my stress, but because I wasn't exercising all the time, I have had more time to study. So I've managed to fit it in. So I just have had to really prioritize what I'm doing, and do other things that help me manage my stress. And I know everyone's different. So for me, a big one is meditating. I'm just, huge lover of that, and doing some journaling as well. So it was kind of a whole sort of wheel approach. It was everything. But the way that I found it more manageable was because with Sarah, we did it week by week. So 1 week was exercise, one's food, one's another bit, working on body image. Like, it wasn't like, hello, you've got to do all of this at once, and you just get so
overwhelmed.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This change your whole life.
Just like that. Wake up tomorrow and do it all. It's like, no.
So small changes are better than nothing, I've worked out. And then suddenly you make the small changes and you're further down the road than you think.
Yeah, that's right. And then you look back and you're like, wow, it took so much effort to break all these rules, and now they're a memory.
Yeah, exactly. Feels like another life.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up the fact that now you've got the time and the space to study now, because that is a common thing. It's like, you stop training as much and you actually take some time to look at what you want to achieve in life, and hobbies or long-term goals, and suddenly you do have the time and space to put energy into things that really excite you. Like, studying could have its lulls, but at the same time you're really excited to take this new career path, and that feels great. And obviously you're not getting worn down to the bone from energy expenditure, because you're taking your time, you're learning things that excite you, and like, that sounds really pleasant. That sounds like a nice way to spend your days.
It does. And that's something that I'm sure you would know, and anyone else who's actually gone through recovery, is you have more time for everything else.
So much more time. But you underestimate, because you start to block your training into these windows of time periods, that you kind of lose track as to how much time you're allocating. Because it starts off as 45 minutes and it ends up as 2 and 3 hours, and you don't know, just 10 more minutes. How long did it take you to recover your period from the time, I guess, you were more consciously putting the effort in? So you from when you said no gym for 4 weeks, was it long from then till your cycle come back?
About 4 months.
Wow, that's awesome.
Not long at all.
Yeah. No, but at the same time, you'd been trying to restore your health for quite some time. And I love explaining that to women where it might sound like 4 weeks all in or 8 weeks all in. But if you look at when the journey really began, there could have been 6 months on top of that, 6 months of reducing training just a smidge, working on eliminating stress, working on eating just a little bit more. And then the timeline tends to only stop from that all in part, or when they started a program or something like that. And it can be disheartening if you're only hearing 4 week blocks, 8 week blocks, but it's really important to know the whole story, because there's so much more to it. And the lead up is really important.
Yeah, because mine, like when I decided to, like when I started to go see the psychologist and made the decision to go into recovery for the eating disorder as well, I knew that was also going to be part of, I wanted to get my period back as well. To me, they were always they were quite intertwined. So I started doing that in November last year. So November. So that's, another 4.
So that's more like a year of recovery, because that's the thing, isn't it? If you've got like eating disorders, which most of us do who have HA, that's the pinnacle of recovery. It's like if you recover your period and you've still got your eating disorder lingering, like that can be just as challenging. Like at the end of the day, that eating disorder it needs to be resolved, and whether you do it by yourself or by seeing a psychologist or a physician or whatever method you take, it's so important to your overall just living a healthy life is to be able to just be free around food and not have all of these thoughts attached or emotions attached as well. It's that you can be in a place where it is just food. Because did you remember hearing anyone say that to you back in the midst of it? They're like, oh, it's just food. And you'd be like, oh my God, it's not just food. There's so many decisions attached to whatever you choose to eat.
Yeah.
And now I can look at food and be like, oh, like I still might make, conscious food decisions, but it's very different to what it was back then.
Yeah, very much the same. It requires much less brain power now. It's just there's not as much thinking behind it. I guess it's not as much as a stress or an effort. It's much more free. There's always, the hard part for me is there's always an element of needing to think a bit more than perhaps the average person because of my other health issues, like having IBD.
Yeah.
And that, I can't have certain things because of health issues. So I still have that sort of consideration, but it's definitely not like it used to be. And I know that's some people don't really quite understand that, it's not just food. And that has been a big part of why I've gone down the path of like studying, a degree in nutrition, because it's just something that I am so fascinated by it. And I know that it's more than just food to me and so many other people. So it's really become such a big interest of mine that I'm really excited to see where that takes me to.
Yeah, and we can't wait as well, because we're obviously going to link your details in the show notes. So it is the healthy_lawyer on Instagram, which I'll pop in the show notes. Because for anyone who wants to reach out and have a chat with you, you can shine so much light on eating disorder recovery, HA recovery, and then the IBD as well, because it tends to be one of those conditions that actually is quite common in society, but no, it's one person mentions it and then a few others pop up and go, oh, me too, me too, me too. So it's great that you've come to a place where you can manage it really well, because from my understanding, it takes people quite a long time and investigation to actually get to a place where they can manage it to the best of their ability.
Yeah, it is. And look, that's a whole nother story. The whole journey of getting diagnosed, which many people who have it would be the same. It's not a straightforward thing to do. And for me, I will have to be on the drugs that I'm on for the rest of my life, more likely than not, which is fine, because luckily they're not the hardcore ones, and it's manageable. But look, it's something that can make so many other things more complex. So I hope that, who knows, like I don't know what's going to happen with my studies, because I'm only 1 year down of the part-time degree, but I would like to be able to help people who have similar conditions with, having IBD or IBS, but then also having HA has really sparked that interest and passion for women's health as well. And yeah, eating disorder recovery and HA, as I'm sure it has yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just so excited to see what happens in the next couple of years. I think you're going to be absolutely amazing. And I can be like, she was here first, ladies. She was here first.
Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I'll leave all the information in the show notes, and we will see you in the next episode. If you could like, subscribe, or share, that would be absolutely amazing. And thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks.